So reading 35 is portfolio performance evaluation. So this reading is about evaluating portfolio performance, that how do you evaluate portfolio performance and what are the key measures which you can use for portfolio performance. So remember that portfolio performance evaluation have three key components. It includes performance measurement, which is the initial foundation phase and calculates the return and risk of the fund, that how much return has the portfolio generated and what was the risk taken for that return. So that is performance measurement. So first you measure performance, then attribution, that where did that return come from, what led to that return. Is your portfolio manager really performing well, or was it due to the benchmark he or she is following? Where is the performance coming from? What is adding value? And then performance appraisal, that is, was the strategy and the decisions used by your portfolio manager effective or not. So these three are the evaluation tools, that is measuring the performance, attributing the performance, where is it coming from, and then performance appraisal, that was it the right strategy, were the decisions right or not. And basis this you decide the portfolio evaluation, that what is the overall performance of the portfolio. So starting with so you know how to measure return, you know how to measure risk, you have already covered it. Now moving on to performance attribution, that where is performance actually coming from, where is the return or risk actually coming from. So for this attribution to be effective, you need to know the 100% of the portfolio's return and risk exposure, that where is actually return coming from, where is risk coming from. You need to know portfolio manager's current decision making process, that what is the process he or she is using. You know the active investment decisions taken by the portfolio manager, and you need to have a full explanation of portfolio's excess return and risk, that what actually led to excess return and excess risk. Until and unless you know that where is return and risk coming from and what led to excess return and risk, you will not be able to evaluate the performance of portfolio. So only knowing the performance is not enough, only knowing the return and risk is not enough. You need to know that where is that return and risk coming from and what has led to that return and risk. So moving on, how do you attribute return and how do you attribute risk? That is the key question. So there could be micro attribution or there could be macro attribution. Micro attribution analyzes the portfolio at portfolio manager's level and it verifies that the portfolio manager did what they said. So first thing is to know is that whether portfolio manager actually did what he said or not. So micro attribution is analyzing whether portfolio manager actually did what he or she wanted to do or not. Then macro attribution analyzes investment decisions at fund sponsors level, that were the decisions actually helpful, were the decisions aligned with what investor wanted or what the sponsor wanted or not. So you need to have micro attribution as well as macro attribution, that firstly whether the portfolio manager did what he or she wanted to did or not, and secondly was it actually right what he or she wanted to do or not. So performance attribution, moving on, could be returns based, holdings based and transaction based. By return based means you can find out that what is the return and what was the required return or targeted return, and attribute performance basis that where is the return coming from. Holdings based means that what are you holding in your portfolio, and whatever you are holding in your portfolio, what kind of characteristics does it have the characteristics which you want or not. And transaction based, that is at transaction level, what transactions were made and what were the returns on those transactions. So returns based attribution generally uses regressions to analyze where is return coming from, that how much return is coming from security A, how much is coming from B, how much is coming from opportunity C. Holdings based attribution uses beginning of period portfolio assets, that is what were the assets held in the portfolio. And transaction based attribution improves upon the holding based attribution by updating the attribution of beginning of period holdings with any subsequent trades. That is, what was the holding in beginning and how did it change over the period of time. So these could be the three key attribution techniques. So moving on to arithmetic attribution and geometric attribution. So arithmetic attribution simply explains any excess return as the difference between return earned by the portfolio and that of its appropriate benchmark. So you take a benchmark and you find out that what is the return that you have earned and what is the return which your benchmark has earned, and then you find out that what is the return differential which you have earned. That is your arithmetic return. So arithmetic attribution is simply difference between return earned by the portfolio and that of its benchmark. So for example, if you earn 10% on your portfolio and the benchmark that you have earned, for example, let's say 5% return, then your arithmetic differential or attribution is 5%. Geometric attribution improves upon the arithmetic approach by classifying the geometric excess return, that is this differential which you have divided by 1 plus benchmark return. This is your geometric attribution. So if you look at this example, portfolio return is 8.05% and benchmark return is 5.05. So what is your excess return? Your excess return is 3%. Now from this 3%, some of it could be a result of allocation and some of it could be a result of selection. By allocation, it means that maybe there was an asset for which benchmark had a weight of 20%, but you thought that that asset will outperform and so you gave it a higher weight. So that is allocation effect. Selection effect is that maybe in benchmark there was a security which you thought will underperform and so you did not buy it, but instead of that you bought something else. So due to your selection you generated extra return. So your excess return could either be due to allocation or it could be due to selection. So your excess return that you are making, which is your alpha, could either be due to allocation, that is changing in weights or applying different weights than benchmark, or it could be due to selection, that is selecting some other asset or security than your benchmark. Now moving on, how do you attribute it? So here you have a Benson model being explained to attribute equity returns. So this you know how to calculate return for portfolio weighted average return, how to calculate return from benchmark, weighted average return of benchmark. So now the question is, how do you get the allocation effect, that how much is coming in from allocation? So in order to get the allocation effect, that how much is coming in from allocation, what you simply do is you take the weight that you have in your portfolio and you subtract the weight of benchmark and then you multiply it with the benchmark return. So you take the asset, you take the weight of that asset in your portfolio, you subtract the weight of that asset in benchmark and you multiply it with the return on benchmark. This tells you that how much is coming in from your difference in weight or your different weight compared to benchmark. So for example, if you look into it, there is an example. You have financial sector and technology sector. Weight is 20% financial, 80% technology in your portfolio. While in reality in benchmark weight is 50-50. So you have changed weights. You have underweighted financial and you have overweighted technology. Return from financial is 6%, return from technology is minus 12% in your portfolio. In benchmark, return from financial is 4% and return from technology is 2%. And overall benchmark return is 3%. So your return is lower, minus 8.4. Benchmark return is higher, 3%. So the differential is 11.4%. that means you have underperformed the benchmark by 11.4%. Your return is 11.4% lower compared to benchmark. So now the question is that how much of it is due to allocation and how much of it is due to selection. So in order to find it for allocation, this is the formula which you use: weight in portfolio minus weight in benchmark multiplied by benchmark return. And how would you apply it? So for financial sector, your weight is 0.2, but benchmark had a weight of 0.5. So 0.2 minus 0.5, and the return on benchmark was 4%. So multiplied by 4. This gives you minus 1.2%. That means minus 1.2% of your performance is from underweighing your financial sector compared to benchmark. Then same for technology, 0.8 minus 0.5 multiplied by 2%, 0.6. That means plus 0.6% is due to you overweighing technology. So this tells you the allocation effect, that how much of it is coming from allocation. So minus 1.2 plus 0.6. So total allocation effect is minus 0.6. So this means from this minus 11.4% underperformance which you have, minus 0.6% is due to allocation effect. So you have an underperformance of minus 11.4%. And from this, how much is due to allocation? Some is due to allocation, and how much is due to allocation? The due to allocation is minus 0.6%. Now moving on, what is the remaining impact? The remaining impact would be security selection, which is your stock picking. How do you calculate its impact? Its impact is calculated by taking return on your portfolio minus benchmark return multiplied by weight of benchmark. So previously what did you do? You did weight on your portfolio minus weight on benchmark multiplied by benchmark return. This is your allocation effect. Now what you are doing? You are doing return on portfolio minus return on benchmark multiplied by weight and benchmark. This is your selection effect, which is due to selection, and these two combined leads to total impact. So allocation effect you have already calculated. For selection effect you can use this formula: return on portfolio minus return on benchmark multiplied by weight of benchmark. So now if you do this for financial sector, it will be weight of benchmark multiplied by portfolio return minus return on benchmark 1%, and then technology similarly minus 7. This means the selections which you did in financial sector, security selections and asset selections which you did in financial sector, led to a positive 1% impact compared to benchmark, but the selections which you did in technology led to minus 7% return in compared to benchmark in your portfolio, and these two combined led to a total selection effect of minus 6%. So that means from this minus 11.4%, minus 6% came in from selection effect. So these two are your key components, allocation and selection. That due to allocation you had an impact of minus 0.6, and due to selection you had an impact of minus 6%. Then these two combined, or interaction between these two, led to a total loss of minus 11.4%. So what is the third component? The third component is your interaction effect. That is the overall impact which led to the overall loss due to the interaction of these two. So it is the residual amount which ensures the arithmetic return minus the relative benchmark is fully accounted for in attribution analysis. So this remaining differential which is left is coming in due to your interaction effect. And if you calculate interaction effect, the formula could be weight in portfolio minus weight of benchmark multiplied by return on portfolio minus return on benchmark. So for financial sector, you apply this formula, it is minus 0.6. For technology, you apply this formula, it is minus 0.4. And when you add them up, it is minus 4.8%. So the third is minus 4.8%, which is interaction effect. And if you combine all of these, you will see that 6 minus 4.8 is minus 10.8, and minus 10.8 is plus minus 0.6 is 11.4. So this 11.4% of underperformance which you had, which is your return on portfolio minus return on benchmark, which was minus 11.4%. This from this minus 11.4%, minus 0.6 was due to allocation, minus 6 was due to selection, and the remaining remaining one from these two is due to interaction. So this is how you attribute your return to different areas, that is due to allocation, selection, and interaction. So you should be able to calculate all of these, and you should be able to find out that where is actually the differential coming in from. The differential in your return and your portfolio return and benchmark return, where is it actually coming from? How much is it coming from attribution, how much from selection, and how much from interaction? So that is this is Brinson model. Now moving on to another model. Next is factor-based return attribution. So in factor-based return attribution, what you do is you run a regression and you find out that how much is coming from which factor. So for example, you can use Carhart model. So you have learned it earlier as well. What is Carhart model? In Carhart model, your excess return, which is portfolio return minus risk-free return, is attributed to these factors, which is your alpha, which is plus beta into risk market risk premium, that is market return minus risk-free rate, plus business size premium, which is a small business minus big business return, plus market value to book value to price ratio, which is high book value to price minus low book value to price, plus winner minus loser, which is your momentum. So all these factors lead to return. So some of the excess return would come from market premium, some would come from business size, some would come from book value to price ratio, some would come from momentum, and the remaining one would be the one, which is the alpha, which is the extra return which you are making after accounting for all these factors. So this is how you can find out that how much is the alpha being generated. Then this is due to the skill of portfolio manager or investment decisions of portfolio manager. So if you find out how much is coming from these factors, and if you remove it from total excess return, you will find out the alpha. So here is an example. You have portfolio, you have benchmark, you have difference. So in portfolio our market risk premium you got is 0.98, in benchmark it is 1, difference is minus 0.02, minus 1.1, minus 1 and minus 0.1, 0.3, 0 and 0.3, 0.09, 0.05, 0.04. These are factor sensitivities, these are betas. This is the beta. Factor returns for market risk premium return was this, small minus this, high book value to market value this, and momentum this. These are the returns. And if you multiply this beta differential by this return, you will get these weighted average, these returns, and if you sum them up, this will give you the factor tilts return, that how much is coming from factor tilts. And then you can find out the total return, and you can find out how much is it with respect to total return. So minus 0.09 divided by total active return will give you minus 5.59%. So that means up in the total active returns which you are getting, 78% is due to this factor, 21.1% due to this factor, 12.46 due to this factor, and minus 5.59% due to this factor. And if you sum them up, that is 106.05%. So from the 100% variation, 106.05% is due to these factors. So what is left due to alpha? This is minus 6.05. So you know that your total active return is 1.65%. From this 1.65%, these factors have together led to 1.75%. So these factors have led to 1.75%. So how much would have alpha led to? Alpha would have led to 1.65 minus 1.75. That means minus 0.1%. So this means from this 1.65% minus 0.1% is alpha. That means investment manager has actually deteriorated value. He or she has not even made the return which otherwise you would have gotten from these fundamentals, and so he or she has deteriorated value. The alpha is negative, and this alpha minus 0.1% as a percentage of total active return is this minus 6.05%. That means from your total active return, the alpha is minus 6.05%. So the portfolio manager has deteriorated your value. So this is another way, which is factor sensitivity, that is analyzing the performance using factor sensitivity. So those were for equity return attribution, which is the major topic. With respect to fixed income return attribution, you can have exposure decomposition with respect to duration. That is using duration to quantify active portfolio decisions regarding interest rate decisions relative to benchmark. You could have yield curve decomposition. Yield curve decomposition could be either top down or bottom up. It would utilize both duration and yield to maturity. So you know that the percentage change in total return is equals to percentage of income return plus percentage of price return. And you know that the percentage of price return is approximately equal to minus duration minus change in YTM. If you multiply duration with change in YTM, that gives you the percentage change in price return. So if you want to find out that how much of the price has changed due to change in YTM, you can use this formula. Then third is yield curve decomposition, full repricing. So the general concept behind all of these is that you know that the duration leads to change in price return. So higher the duration, higher will be the change in price and the return, and the lower the duration, lower will be the change in price. So you are able to decompose that how much is coming in from income, how much is coming in from change in price, and with respect to change in price, how much is coming from due to duration and how much is due to change in YTM. So there is an example on full price. This is an example on full repricing decomposition. You can just go through it. I don't think that you need to get into all these calculations, as long as you know the basic formulas, that total return is income return plus price return, and price return is approximately minus duration minus change in YTM. That should be good to go. You can go through it. I don't think that you need to memorize any of these. So this is all about return attribution, that how do you actually attribute return to different factors.